Do you want to learn how to make tofu in under 3 minutes?
Well, today on WTF, I'm going to use Glucono Delta-Lactone to make tofu live on the show. Hello and welcome to WTF, where we transform food here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen. I'm Chef Scott Guerin.
And I'm Janie Wang, the owner of Modernist Pantry. Today, Scott and I are really happy to be talking about, one of our favorite foods, which is tofu. And I've certainly eaten tons and tons of tofu in my lifetime, but certainly have never also made it. But today we're going to go through exactly how to do that. So Scott, what ingredient do we use? And let's get started with the process.
So we really need to get the process going because we're going to actually make tofu from the heating process to the serving process here on the show today. We're going to be using an ingredient called GDL, which is Glucono Delta-Lactone. And it's an acidifier that's actually 1/3 the acidity or sourness of citric acid. So it's used just to coagulate the soy milk and make the tofu.
Great.
So really quick, I took some soybeans you can see here and I just reconstitute them in some water. Just soak them in some water. Then I take that and I blend it. I strain that out with a super bag, which you can find an episode online for our super bags of WTF. And then I heat the milk. So all this is right here is just soybeans, water that have been heated.
Okay.
I'm going to pour this into this container. And in here, I have 1 gram of GDL, 1 gram of cornstarch, and all that does is it allows the GDL to disperse properly, and 10 grams of water. And this is a half batch than the recipe that you'll find online. I just want to be able to show you can fill up one of our containers here. So I'm going to take this, and one thing you want to do is you need to pour this in quickly, because if you don't, it'll start to set immediately in here, and then when you go to pour it then into your mold, it'll just break apart. So I'm going to pour it in very quick. And then from there, I'm going to pour it into my mold. And the reason why I do that 2-step pouring is that it gives it a little bit more time to mix together. So when it goes in, it starts to mix, and then I pour it into my mold, it'll mix even more. Now we don't touch it. But in a few moments, this will then be tofu that I can serve. And this is a very soft type of tofu. So this is known as tofu fa. And people may not like it because it's just so soft. I love it. I think it's an amazing type of tofu. But a lot of people go for like extra firm tofu when they go to the grocery store, and that's what turns people off to tofu.
Right. Yeah, so if you haven't tried silken tofu, which is what the softest variety is often referred to, definitely give it a shot. It's delicious. And but just so, because we kind of had to walk through this process fairly quickly, so a couple of things, I think one thing people are like, if I don't want to do my own soy milk, can you use a commercially store-bought soy milk? Good.
That's a very good question. You can. The one thing you need to look out for are emulsifiers that are inside the soy milk themselves. Also flavorings. There's sometimes a lot of sugar in these soy milks. A lot of vanilla, to kind of hide that soy flavor. So if you're going to get a very bland, very natural soy product, that's totally fine. But if you're going to just go, I'm going to grab this, sweetened vanilla soy milk because it tastes good and I'm going to make tofu out of it, well, you're going to have kind of a dessert tofu at that point. So I wouldn't necessarily suggest doing that. And also make sure you read the ingredients. And it's not hard to just let these soak for a day and make your own. And you're going to get the best texture and the best flavor out of it.
Okay, and once you make the soy milk and you're heating it up, does it need to be at boiling before you put in the GDL?
Yeah, so this was just at a simmer. I let it come up to a boil. The only reason why you would do that is just to make sure it's pasteurized at that point. It doesn't really affect it other than you're bringing it all the way up to a correct temperature. You're also going to mix in that GDL really easily, and then it's going to set into your mold.
Yeah, and what's amazing about kind of doing this, and we've done it quite a bit here in the kitchen, is just how fast this process is. And I think people who are not chefs and who haven't worked a lot with tofu before, when you think making tofu, you're thinking it's really laborious, long. Artisanal process, and this certainly can be that, but you can also just do it in a minute too.
Yeah, so, and if you don't want such a like a fine tofu, which we can serve this within minutes after making it. But if you don't like that extremely fine custardy flavor or texture, you can I just take some paper towels, I square them up and I put them right on top and I wrap them, and you change it out 2 or 3 times over a 24-hour period, and then you get something like this. So this is a slightly thicker product. It still has all the creaminess of a quality silken tofu, and as you can see,
right,
it's really beautiful. And if I were to cut just a small amount of this off, you can see it's smooth. You don't want it to be gritty, you don't want it to be clumpy. That's
Right.
an extra firm, and that has the texture of like overcooked scrambled eggs,
Okay.
which is good for certain things. You can definitely make a nice extra firm tofu. But this recipe is for silken tofu. I don't have too much in the vein of making extra firm tofu. I've never gone too far because I really like silken tofu, and I prefer this in all of my recipes.
Okay, and this, looks really delicious as well. And once they've made this, how long can they keep it in the fridge?
You can keep it in the fridge. I always suggest 7 days. 7 days
Okay.
is the best way to keep anything that you've made at your home. It is, a wet product that has protein and it's exposed to oxygen. So those are the 3 things that are going
Right.
to eventually cause some sort of foodborne illness if you just leave it in the refrigerator forever. But 7 days is fine. And I mean, it makes this recipe, if you use the entire recipe, makes about 1 pound to 2 pounds of tofu. So that's pretty good. If you do 2 or 3 meals a week with it, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and and I kind of noticed when you poured the soy milk into the container, you didn't use a whisk. There's no stirring, so there's no need to kind of go the extra mile to
Yep.
evenly distribute it before we move it in here.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to move this out of the way, and we're actually going to get into the 2 things that we've made here.
Yes, the eating portion
Yes.
of the WTF.
So if we were to use this, this silken tofu.
This one?
Yep.
All right.
So we made here is a vegan-friendly Mapo tofu, which sometimes it does contain ground pork, and if you wanted to put ground pork in it, it's totally fine. But on our website, the blog, this recipe is completely vegan. So it has Szechuan peppercorns, it has our tofu that we made here, and you can see there's a piece of the tofu, and it's in this really spicy sauce that we make. And this is my favorite dish. And some people say, "Oh, what's your favorite thing to cook?" And that's a hard question to answer for a chef. This is my favorite thing to cook. It's easy, it's incredibly flavorful, and it makes a really beautiful rice dish. And you can use all my favorite things from chili oil to Szechuan peppercorns to tofu, silken tofu.
Yeah, and it's absolutely delicious. We've all had it, and it's so yummy.
Yes, and I'm going to eat that entire bowl after and sweat profusely. So, with that being said, we can go on to our last. And what are we making here, Janie?
Oh, I'm going to challenge you to say it. So we're making
Yes.
a dish that kind of I grew up with in China back in the early 80s, and it's called tofu now. And it's roughly, or literally, translates to tofu brains, but obviously no brains are involved. And it's basically like a soup, but with very freshly made, very soft tofu. And it's just absolutely delicious. So it's kind of like a nostalgia food. It's something that I've never seen here in the U.S. So if someone knows where to get it, let me know. But when I knew that Scott was making tofu, I was like, definitely make some of this, at least just so I can eat it,
Yes.
if nothing else.
And then I tasted it. It's fantastic. It's a very easy way. So if you wanted to go from pot to a dish, you could have it almost immediately. So the only things I'm going to use is I have some, chicken stock here that's been salted. Nothing else added to it. I have in the bowl is you're able to purchase, if you can find pickled mustard root, use that, but we have pickled mustard leaves, and that's totally fine. They have a really nice pungent flavor, and I have a little bit of sweet soy in there as well. The chili oil that you may see in the bottom of this comes from the pickled mustard leaves.
Yep,
So-
and you can find this in most Asian grocery stores.
Yes.
And if you don't find this, it's really the idea is that you have this light, fresh tofu in a really light broth with some savory, spicy elements, and it can be really anything you want it to be.
Yes. So I'm going to try and break into this now.
Okay,
Let's
do
see.
it.
Let's see.
Let's see. Ooh, there it is. So it's all soft and jiggly.
Yes. So that's exactly what you want. You want it to be extremely smooth Just put a little bit in there. That's the freshest tofu. And then you add in just a little bit of chicken broth. You can mix it up. And here you go, Janie.
Thank you
It's
very
all
much.
yours. A bit of nostalgia.
Love nostalgia.
And a question that we sometimes get is,
While I'm eating.
yeah, while you're eating, is GDL always used with tofu or making tofu? And it generally needs some sort of acid, but GDL is the most common because it is not as acidic as citric acid. So it's not going to make a sour tofu. It's just going to make a really clean flavored tofu.
Yeah. So it is delicious, as is the Mapo tofu. We're not eating it yet. We're saving it for Scott for lunch.
Yeah, it's my lunch, yeah.
But we hope that, we were able to show you in this WTF just how easy this process is for you to get the freshest tofu that you could possibly imagine, and that basically anybody can do it. So from here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen, I'm Janie Wang.
And I'm Scott Garrett. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you want these great recipes and these awesome ingredients, first you're going to have to like, comment, and subscribe. And then you're going to go to blog.modernistpantry.com where you can find those awesome recipes and you can ask a chef. And to get these great ingredients, go to modernistpantry.com. And until next time, we'll be here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen helping you transform food.